Intuitive viewers, welcome. I'm really excited today because I have my daughter Cassie here. Hi, Cassie.
Hello.
For those of you who don't know, Cassie's in the UK. She has been there for over a year, about a year and a half, right,
Yeah,
Cassie?
it'll be 2 years in April.
Okay, so
So
yeah,
yeah.
a little over a year and a half, and she just graduated from film school. And so, and she also has a YouTube channel that's about film. So check that out. That's Cassie Carey, Cassie Carey, and we'll have the link down at the
Yeah.
bottom. um, but check that out. She talks about film. It's not a spiritual channel, but she talks about film and
Yeah.
it's a really good channel. But anyway, so I wanted to talk with Cassie today, though, because we had a conversation on the phone. We talk every day, and so we were having a conversation about film and about spirituality in film and how it's changed and evolved, and things that we've seen in films that we thought were correct and things that we thought were wrong spiritually. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about this topic. um, as I said, Cassie just graduated from film school and she's working on her own short film right now, which we'll talk about at the end. But so welcome, Cassie. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you. I was on at the beginning of the channel because I used to do channeling. That
Mhm.
was kind of my thing, I guess. If
That
I
was
had
your
a thing,
thing.
that was my thing. But yeah, so it's good to be back.
Great. And yeah, Cassie's an excellent channel. She's really, really good at channeling, and she would channel different um just people in history and things like that. And they're
Public
still on the channel.
figures.
So if you want to look them up, pardon?
Public figures.
Public figures, yeah, if you want to look it up, they're still on the channel. So but she's been doing her film thing. So that's what she's doing. So I thought it would be fun to have her on to talk about this topic. Um, so let me start by asking you this, Cassie.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite film that has kind of spiritual themes?
Mm,
Um, and what do you think that it gets right about
right.
spirituality, and what do you think it gets wrong? And then I'll share mine as well. But what is yours?
So, hmm. It's funny because one of the first films that I remember that kind of changed my view, because when I was younger, I had certain ideas about things with spirituality, but I wasn't really involved in that yet, and you weren't really involved in that yet. I mean, you kind of just left the Mormon church. I was about like 12 or 13, you left the Mormon church. So,
Right.
I didn't really have any idea. And every time I would see like spirits or ghosts in films and movies, it would always be scary and
Right.
terrifying. And like in horror movies, it'd always be really scary, and it would sometimes like give me nightmares, and it would, and same with like I had a big fear of zombies as well. I know it's not like ghosts, but it's still like afterlife, and
Right.
it always came off so scary as a kid. So I remember one of the films that changed my view about like 12 or 13 years old was Paranorman, because I mean, one, I love that film. I think
Hmm.
it's very underrated. Better it's better watching it now. I loved it then, but I understand it a bit more now.
Hmm.
But what's interesting about that movie, I guess spoiler if you haven't seen it, because everybody's upset about spoilers, so I just have to
Yeah.
say spoiler with every film. But you, in the end, you kind of find out that because he's kind of chased by zombies, and kind of this ghost girl, or like, we don't know she's a girl yet, you just think she's a witch, keeps popping up, and they're like all scary, and they have like all the stereotypes around them with like a horror film, and like, oh, the zombies are coming to eat me, to eat my brains and stuff. And
Yeah.
same with like the witch, it's like they're coming to haunt me or coming to like torment me. But then you find out that the witch, it was a little girl who was in the Salem witch trials, and the zombies are all the townspeople that convicted her, which is really mature for a kids film, but
Mhm.
they convicted her and she cursed them and they are paying the price for it. And I thought that was a really interesting way to go about it, because all of them, even like the witch, like the little girl, they're all people that kind of made mistakes and were kind of misunderstood in a way. And I think that's kind of what it got right with spirituality, is that, with especially like haunted houses and stuff like that, I think people misinterpret things sometimes with how ghosts or spirits or whatever you want to call it, try to connect with us or like communicate with us, that that it's like evil spirits are haunting the house. And sometimes there can be like, just angry spirits, because like the
Malevolence.
little girl was angry, she was
Right.
like, she did evil actions and she was just angry, but it was for a reason. It wasn't just because she was evil. um so I, that kind of changed my view on like that sort of thing, that
Mhm.
to not like judge a book by its cover. um yeah, and I think maybe stuff that it got wrong was, I mean, it still kind of used a lot of like old like tropes, from like horror movies and stuff. I don't think
Right.
it was quite like Soul, where it's like it totally like separated itself from that sort of thing.
Right.
It wasn't scary at all. So, but I think that that's just, that comes with filmmaking. I think,
Right. You have to
I think
make
it
it interesting. And
interesting.
that movie, we should say too that it's animated.
Yeah,
It's an
yeah, it's a
animated
stop
movie.
motion animation, which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah. And it came out around Halloween, right? It was like a
Yeah,
Halloween
it
movie,
was,
right?
or yeah, it was like September, somewhere
Yeah.
around there.
So it
Yeah.
was supposed to be, so it did have those scary elements to it.
Yeah, well, and Leica, the studio that did it, did Coraline before it, so I think they were trying to do something like that,
Hmm.
and I think that's kind of why the movie didn't really get that much publicity around it, was that it kind of turned into something different. It wasn't as dark as Coraline, like it's more like Corpse Bride in a way, where
Yeah.
it's like it's actually a really like uplifting film, because it's
Hmm.
all about like redemption, and people can be redeemed, and people are not what they seem. Unlike Coraline, where it's like it is what it seems, and she's crazy. The other mother is crazy, and she's gonna kill you, basically.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, I that's one of the first movies that comes to my mind, though.
Well, and when I was thinking about this question, Cassie, I was thinking about that probably one of my favorite films with a spiritual theme is It's a Wonderful Life. And
Yeah.
I was thinking that what it got right, I think, and for those of you who don't know, again, spoiler alert, this was filmed
From
in the
1940
40s,
whatever.
so you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. But
Yeah.
um, it follows the life of this man through his guardian angels basically learning about him so that he can go down and help him because he's in a moment of crisis.
Hmm.
And it's basically about his whole life. He wanted to leave his small town, go build things, have an exciting life. And he ends up staying in this small town and taking over his father's business that it helps a lot of people, but they never, they don't like make a lot of money or anything. And he has his wife and kids and it's stressful. And there's a point where his partner loses a bunch of money and he may go to jail. And so he decides to kill himself. And that's where his guardian angel comes in and stops him. And
Again,
he
very
jumps
lighthearted
in.
film.
Right. Yeah, no, it sounds really, it is, again, it's quite heavy. The themes are very heavy, but
Yeah.
one thing I think it gets right, or there's several things. It has a lot of really beautiful themes in it,
Mm.
but a few things I think it gets right is that, I think that, well, one man's life touches many others. I think that's one thing
Yeah.
that is very true. And I think it's, you know, spiritually we're all connected, and that's kind of it. It shows that how connected he was to all of the lives in that town, and how they were very connected to him, and how much he affected their lives just by one small act, or
Right.
one act at the right time. And I also think that it gets right, the fact that we what was I going to say? Oh, the film opens with everybody praying for him. And I
Mhm.
think that prayer, that's the other thing that I think they get right, is that prayer does work. And again, there are a lot of wonderful themes. One of the main things I think it gets right is how the film ends, which is him being so grateful for, he's shown, what would life would be like if he had never been born. And everything is different and horrible and terrible. And what he realizes is that he's so grateful for the friends he has, the family he has. And at the moment that he is so grateful and shows his appreciation, is the moment that everyone steps up to help him, and he gets what he
Right.
really wants. He ends up
Right.
being the richest man in town because everyone helps him. But I think that is so true about manifesting. But
Mhm.
once you are grateful for what you actually have, that's when more comes.
Yeah.
It's almost like because of the gratefulness in your heart, or the gratefulness that you show, your um, your vibration kind of lightens in a way that
Right.
matches what you want to come. It matches abundance, basically. So I think they get that right. The few things I think they get wrong is that um, we only have one guardian angel. I think that's not true. I think we have many guides, and I think there may be one that is closest to us that kind of is like the conductor in a
Like
way,
a
kind
family
of
member, maybe.
yeah, something like that, like a
Or
family
maybe in
member, or
another
somebody
life,
that's
a
just
family member in another life or something that
right,
you're
right.
not spending this life with.
Right. So there may be one that's like there the entire time, but I feel like there's lots of guides that come in and out. And I know that they come to me in groups whenever I read for people. So I know there's a group of guides, at least in my opinion, as when I do my readings. That's how they come across. So I think that's not quite right. And I don't think that people earn their wings.
Yeah.
I don't think people earn their
Every
angel
time
wings.
a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Yeah, that
What's
I
the
don't
thing
think
that you
is
always
right.
say? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. What is it that thing you always say? Your Jimmy
That's
Stewart
right.
impression?
That's right. Sorry, it's Jimmy Stewart, so that's what he sounds like. That's my
But
best Jimmy Stewart impression. Mine is Harry, Harry. That's, anyway, okay, so I'm going to move off of that.
one thing I wanted to add on when you were saying about manifesting is that
Right.
the other thing too is him surrendering as well. That's also the
Yes.
moment where he surrenders to the universe, because the whole time he's like fighting what's happening around him, which I mean we all can kind of relate to right now with, you
Hmm.
know, what's happening in the
Pandemic.
world, and
Yeah.
yeah, like a lot of people I think are fighting against it, and I
Right.
it's kind of the first moment he's not fighting his life and his destiny, and
You're
you know,
right. You're
having
right.
family and stuff and being in that town, you know.
That's a great point. And because within that surrender, he finds gratitude. He's
Yeah.
able to find gratitude, I guess, because he does surrender. Um, Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to see it. He wouldn't,
Yeah.
he'd just, like you said, be in this kind of what Eckhart Tolle always talks about, people being in opposition and being kind of in a mode of not accept not accepting what's happening. And the moment you kind of accept it, surrender to what's happening, you can begin to deal with it.
Yeah.
You've got to let down a little bit and realize where you are. It's not an acceptance of that you want it to keep happening. It's just that this is where I am right now. So now where do I go? What do I do? Get out of that opposition thing. But you're right, Cassie, that's a great
Yeah.
point. Um, so do you think, I mean, because you love films like I do,
Yeah.
but you're a filmmaker as well. And when you watch films like this, do you feel like when directors or writers, when they work within spiritual themes, do you feel like they're being inspired by the divine? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Most of the time or some of the time or
I, I
yeah.
think so. I mean, I can speak from my own experience that I feel that way
Right.
constantly. Especially writing. Don't I think, maybe some things can get muddied when you're directing or when you're editing sometimes because you have multiple people talking
Hmm.
at once. But I think, the writing definitely you can, because I know that I can't remember his name, but like the director of Soul. I know I keep going back to Soul, but
Hmm.
I just watched that movie recently, and it is also very accurate to you know to spirituality and stuff. But kind
Right.
of he's kind of infamous for pausing on, like, because he's had a couple projects where he's like, I have to step away from it and just like almost like meditating in a way.
Oh, hmm.
And he like meditates because he said that I think he got the inspiration because he also did Inside Out, like got the because I can't remember what it was that he was like stuck on with that movie. He was stuck on like a certain plot line, and he's like, I have to take a minute and I have to, basically clear my mind. And he got the idea when he was walking in the woods.
Hmm.
So, stuff like that. And I think definitely him, because I think, and Pixar is just um, very open to stuff, to inspiration
Right.
in general. Like they've always seen, they're not Disney,
Right.
they're not like Disney where they're very corporate. It's like they just kind of go with the flow, and
Right.
see what comes
They're
up,
open to tougher themes
Yeah.
and like more adult themes, even for for child movies. They're
Yeah.
some of the themes can be pretty adult in Pixar movies.
Well, yeah, and I think I heard a thing recently where he was talking about Monsters Inc. and
Hmm.
saying, he had like a tough time trying to figure that out. And I think it was like he eventually figured out that it was kind of almost like a allegory or like a metaphor for parenting. Sully and Boo's relationship. That at first he's afraid of her. You're afraid of
Hmm.
having a kid, and then you grow to love them.
Right.
In the end. So
Right.
stuff like that. It's like you don't. I think
And
is
then you have to
very
let them go as
inspired.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it a lot of their ideas are very inspired because every time I see behind the scenes with their movies, it's always like, well, we weren't sure where to go with this plot line, so we just kind of took a step back and didn't think about it
Right.
for a while and thought about something else, and then all of a sudden we had the answer.
Right. So Cassie, when you brought up the writing that you do for when you write a film or when you write a script.
Yeah.
When you do that and and I know this, I know when this has happened for you because we've talked about it, but when you're writing and you start to feel like someone's joining you from the other side or
Yeah.
someone's helping you from the other side, what changes? What does it feel like? Can you describe the feeling of what it feels like when you're just writing and then when something else enters and helps you? What does that feel like?
Um, it's weird. It does feel like sometimes like the energy shifts a little bit,
Uh-huh.
like when you're writing, especially for me writing dialogue. It feels
Hmm.
like somebody else is just talking, because I've had that before. And not to be like, oh, I'm great, it's not really that. I think it is more of being of like spirituality and like something stepping in,
Hmm.
because I with dialogue I've had people say it doesn't sound like something you would write, or it doesn't sound like
Right.
something you would say.
And I have to
um
say too that that's one of your standouts in your script is always the
yeah.
dialogue. And so that makes sense that you would that there is actually somebody helping you with the dialogue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do feel like that sometimes, and I feel like people, or either one spirit or multiple spirits, I'm not sure, but like something kind of steps in, especially with dialogue. And in certain character moments, character building moments, they step in a lot with characters. I feel like characters, and maybe they know what that's kind of my thing. I like writing characters, you know.
Mhm.
So I think maybe they kind of know that, and that's kind of what they help me the most with.
Right.
You know, writing characters and building character moments and building like their language and dialogue, you know.
Right. You know, and it's interesting too, because I've got, um, when I do readings for artists,
Mm,
I think I've said this before on the channel, I get uh, no matter what kind of artist, whether it's music or visual arts or you know, writing or movies or whatever, it's always comes through that it's a sacred process.
yeah,
They call it that. They say like it's a very sacred process, because you really are kind of taking from, it's partly you, but you're also partly taking from the spirit realm. It's coming through you, and you're leaving it here.
yeah,
You're leaving it here on earth, and it will remain here. And
right,
that's what makes it kind of sacred, is that it's almost like you're leaving a piece of heaven here. You know, you're leaving or a
right,
piece of the spirit realm here, that kind of moves through you. Um, and so when you have that experience, and when you're writing and you feel like you're getting help, do you have memory lapses at all? Do you ever, because when I read, sometimes I won't, either I'll think, where did that come from? Or I won't remember some of the stuff I say.
mm,
Even in some of the ones I've done, like for the channel, I'll
yeah,
watch them and be like, oh, I don't remember saying that. Do you have
right.
memory lapses like that, where you're so deep into a trance or a meditative state that you don't remember some of the stuff you write until you read it over again, and you're like, where did that doesn't sound like me, or whatever. Do you have
Yeah,
that experience with that as well?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I definitely have. You know, sometimes I'll like look back, and it's usually, you know, I think too, like I listen to music a lot when I'm writing, and
Mhm.
I think music is also helps with meditation, in a way. You know, it helps me
Mhm.
a lot with that, and it puts me in a meditative like state. And there
Mhm.
are times where I'm like, I look back at the page and it's like I've written like 2 pages and I didn't even realize. And
Mm.
you know, just stuff like that where it's like, you know, you kind of snap out of it and you're like, oh, okay, I wrote that much. I probably should go back and look at this now so it's just not, you know,
Right.
jumbled. But yeah, especially like when you're not as much with like editing. I think when you're editing, it's a bit more, you are a bit more analytical. But when you're like creating and stuff, and when you're trying to think of dialogue, which is my favorite part, you, yeah, definitely like have lapses in memory.
Right. Right. Because yeah, I find that interesting too. And it is just kind of, I think, a deep meditative state. You're just kind of in that zone. And if you've had that experience as an artist, it does feel like you're kind of in a zone, and it usually
Yeah.
is where your best stuff comes out. You know, it's just appears, it's just there. um so Cassie, um one film we talked about, which I thought might be just interesting to touch on, is Corpse Bride.
Mm,
Some of the themes in that, which I thought were
yeah.
really interesting. Again, a very grown up, I mean, you were obsessed with it when you were like 5.
But I'm
And
weird.
it has, it was weird. And you in fact wore the costume of the Corpse Bride that year for
Yeah.
Halloween.
I was like,
Um,
I was like in first grade, I think. I
yeah,
wore that
yeah, you
costume.
were really little.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you have a picture, you can flash it up on
Yeah, yeah, put that
to
up.
put it in the
Yeah.
editing. But yeah, and but that film is really interesting to me, because it does have these, you know, these uh darker storylines and images. But what's interesting is that it's with the people that are alive
Yeah.
underneath in the netherworld, or whatever, in
Yeah.
the afterlife
Yeah,
world,
like the underworld
the
almost.
underworld. There's like music and dancing, and they
Yeah.
kind of, it's kind of like New Orleans. It's like really,
Yeah.
you know, fun music, and they're
Or like
singing and
Las
dancing
Vegas
and
or
having a
somewhere
great
like
time. And
that.
right, right.
you know,
very
where it's,
bright and colorful.
and the people are more crude as well, which is interesting.
Right.
And you think it would be hell, but it's not hell. Like it is the afterlife. It's just
Right.
not what the like above world or whatever, like the real, you know,
Right.
the
And
land of the living,
it
and that's not what they think.
right. It's loose and fun. And like you said, they kind of, they're more crass. They're laughing and
Yeah.
joking around. And in the world above, the earth, or the earth realm, or the living realm,
Yeah.
it's all buttoned. It's all you know, turn of the century. So everything's very
Yeah.
buttoned up. Everything's very like serious and
Yeah.
proper. And it's the colors are dark. The colors are
Yeah, or
more
it's like black, white, and like gray, a lot of gray, and it's always it. I think it always looks like night there as well, which is interesting. Like I think it's daytime for one scene, and then it's night for the rest of the film.
oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, which is yeah interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, because it's in yeah, it is interesting with that film because it's like their fears are and you know it's funny because the one of my favorite parts, which again is kind of it kind of correlates with like the whole what I was saying with Paranorman, where the when the people go to the, again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it from 2005, but but when the people from like the underworld go up to like the land of the living, they are like terrified of them at first. And remember that one little boy, he like recognizes one of the people from the underworld, and it's like his grandpa or something. He's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
grandpa, and then it's like all like happy and like loving, and it's,
Uh-huh.
but I think it is like that. I think a lot of it, I think a lot of the fears we have are religious based, which
Mhm.
I think is more in that movie than it is in Paranorman, because there's that
Right.
whole underlying tone, like with like the preacher and stuff,
Right.
where you know, and
Right.
you kind of get that sense, and how everything, all their clothing is really stiff and really proper, and everything has tradition to it, you
Right.
know. So I think a lot of it is fear and like things we, I mean, you can obviously attest to that with being in the Mormon church, that
Right.
everything's a bit fear based, you know, in the
Right. Right.
the world.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not even a necessarily intentional, but
Yeah.
as a kid and stuff, those bigger themes are scary.
Yeah.
They kind of strike fear into you. I also think it's the unknown, that
Yeah.
once they realize, oh, it's grandma, oh, it's grandpa, and it
Yeah.
is kind of
Yeah.
like that when you realize those spirits are just us. They're just
Yeah.
family, and and they're just checking in on you and saying hi. It takes on a very different feel. And do you think also, is another thing I thought that was probably right, is that we do take ourselves so seriously here.
Yeah.
That's been a theme, kind of. I mean, and there are, obviously we have to deal with life and death and these big,
Yeah.
heavy things that are difficult, and sickness, and the things that,
Even money.
poverty, and big themes that are awful, being on earth, that are definitely more difficult experiences and difficult problems. But do you think that they have it right, that we do take ourselves so seriously here, that there is a tendency to not sometimes allow ourselves just to laugh at things, like when we lose our keys, getting
Yeah.
angry at that, or standing in line getting angry at that. It's like,
Yeah.
do you think there is that also, that theme of kind of like lighten up, that they
Yeah.
are much lighter, that in that realm, and
Yeah.
we do seem more dramatic and more stiff
Yeah.
in this world? Do
Yeah.
you
Well,
think that's
yeah, and
true?
especially now, I think we're even more so like that now. And I think it's, you know, a lot of it is with good reason. I mean, we had a terrible president and we're in a
Hmm.
terrible time. I don't want to be here, This
Right.
is a terrible time to live in. I don't want to do this either. But
Should we
I
talk about that? Cassie's like, why does it I have to live in this time? This
yeah.
time is terrible. But
Then
it,
my boyfriend always reminds me, like, you know, like you really want to live like during World War II where England is being bombed? I don't
right,
think so.
exactly.
So every time has their stuff.
Right,
But
exactly. Yeah, every generation has their test. Yeah.
but yeah, I think, especially now, and I think, I mean, I talked about this in my last YouTube video with cancel culture and that sort of stuff, where people are just so angry about the tiniest things just on the internet, just about nothing really, that are just like minor things. I mean, I've never seen people get so angry at like movies more in my
Mm,
life, than like these past like few years since Trump has been,
yeah.
here. It people. I mean, I think, hopefully with Biden we will kind of, and once we get past coronavirus, it will lighten up a lot,
Yeah. Yeah. I think just the general mood. I mean, we're all, I think, still suffering from a lot of trauma. And I think
Yeah,
that will continue for a while.
yeah,
Um, for all kinds of different reasons, losing jobs, losing loved ones, the being abused by a president for 4 years, that
yeah,
that takes its toll on people. But I do think it's already there is a lighter feel just in that somebody normal's in charge.
yeah.
That really does, it
Yeah,
takes
yeah,
takes
that is a
something off
big
our plate.
thing. Yeah, because you
Right.
kind of, you look at the president as like your father almost,
Hmm.
and I think, or like a parent, or a mother, I mean, hopefully we'll get a woman president someday. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think they're kind of like a parent for us, that if we have somebody stable, we're a lot happier ourselves, and it's hard when we don't have a stable president, because it's like not having
Right.
a stable parent, it's
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The father, yeah, the father of the country or the mother of the country.
yeah.
Well, Cassie, it's been a delight talking with you. I have loved it every second, as I always do. But can you tell people about your um, the film coming up and your crowdfunding, and also about your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so right now I am working because I really want to get my own projects off the ground, my own film projects. And I've been working on this script for since 2018, I think. So a long time. Um and just now I'm actually starting to do it, and I found a team like I actually really really like and are really really talented. And we're going to be doing a crowdfunder for it, and the movie is called, if you want like a little backstory on it so you know what it is. So it's called Star-Crossed Arcade, and it's about two teenagers in the 1980s that work at an arcade, and it's just a short film, and basically it's at their relationship throughout the film, and kind of it's, I guess you could say, it's like a coming of age film in a way, and they're kind of working together in this dying arcade and kind of form a friendship and kind of get confused about their relationship. And yeah, it's just it's I really love working on that script. It's become very close to my heart, and it's a very, like, if I do say so myself, it's a very sweet film, about two teenagers that are basically, you know, learning harsh grown-up lessons together. But yeah, so it takes place in 1980s, and I am putting up we're putting up a crowdfunder this coming weekend, and trying to raise funds for it. And so if you want to go to the website, I mean, we will, I guess, because I help, you know, my mom do her videos. So
Yeah.
I will link it in the description if you want to go. I know that this is kind of a hard time for a lot of people right now, money wise. So, if you feel like you want to give, give as much as or as little as you want. And if you really, really can't, or if you just don't like the story, okay. But you can share it, definitely share it, and definitely like let people know that might be interested. Just trying to get the word out as much as possible, and hopefully we'll be able to raise the funds
And
necessary to get it
it's an
done.
opportunity to do something we've done, really all of your life, which is to just support the arts.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
arts are something that it's film industry is having a hard time right now.
yeah,
And
especially now.
it's been so valuable through this experience. At least for me, I have done nothing but watch television
Yeah,
and movies and find new
it
things.
has
So
saved us
it
through
is,
this
it is,
time.
it's something that makes the life worth living, really is.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
but that's the other thing I think is just to support a new artist, an up and coming filmmaker, and also support the arts if you can. And like Cassie said, this is about also just sharing it, giving a high five and
Yeah,
good luck
yeah.
and just,
And we're also on Facebook as well. So if you want to like us there and like share us and just support us basically,
yeah,
it would
we'll
be
put all the
great.
links at the bottom too.
Yeah, it would be great if you could donate, but I know, like I said, a lot of people are struggling right now, so I'm not gonna hold you to it, but
And we'll
but
also have a
and
link to your YouTube channel as well.
yes, yeah, and I've been doing my YouTube channel, which I just talk about film and TV shows and just analyze them because why not? It gives me something to do, and I've really enjoyed doing it. Yeah, and
What is the latest one you're doing? What's the one you're working on now?
I'm working on a Disney remakes video, like about the Disney remakes and like the reboots, and kind of going into a little bit of why they're doing it. And I'm working with a another YouTuber. So that should be out either probably next week. It will probably be out next week. The very latest, the next week after. But sometime soon.
Awesome. Well, Cassie, thank you for making time. I know it's late there, so thank you for making time to hang
Yes,
out
of
with us today. I
course.
miss you, boo boo. I miss you. But
Miss
we'll
you
get you
too.
home.
Yeah.
We'll come out. Something will, and now that the vaccines are out, we have high hope. So
Yeah, well, yeah, England has been really like stepping up like their
yeah,
A game. Like they've just passed
yeah,
10 million, I think.
that's great. And we're
Yeah.
starting to pick it up here too. And so we have hope. We have hope.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you, Cassie. And we'll talk to you guys again. Thanks, intuitive viewers. And please share the videos, like them, subscribe, you know. Thank you for hanging out with us. You're our family. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye.